Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. Going to be right back with this week's tech guest. It's a special one. But first, as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. If you've listened to the podcast before, you know these are all companies I used as an AD. They're all great companies. I really recommend you check them out. Take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Tech Tuesday guest, then go and visit these sponsors. They're going to help you do your job better. Let's go and get started. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Now, if you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your parents, your coaches, your student athletes, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that connects you with everybody in your program. You're going to be surprised by the responses too. That's athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. I know I did. Scheduling, rosters, results, communication, facilities. They do it better and they do it faster than the other platforms. Did I mention athletic eligibility and clearance? That one alone is a game changer. Go to homecampus.com and don't forget to mention you heard about it on the podcast. We also want to thank Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. Now, full disclosure, I didn't get my master's from Ohio, but guess what? My assistant athletic director did, and it was a fantastic experience. Did it along with thousands of others. And while they were all earning their degree, they also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses. No extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Let's say thanks to Gipper. Gipper is the modern marketing platform that makes it easy for you to have an athletic department website that looks like it's Division I, maybe even professional. Gipper is used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. And what makes it so easy is the thousands of professionally designed templates that you can customize in your colors, your brands, your logos. Create, share, and schedule all your social media in one simple platform. And that platform is Gipper. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We want to say thanks to Booster Hub, the #1 booster club software program. Concession sales, sponsorship payments, communication, everything flows through their system. Volunteer signups, volunteer changes. You know it's going to happen. Nothing falls through the cracks. Everybody stays connected and engaged. Booster Hub is the platform your boosters deserve. It's the platform they need. Go to boosterhub.com for more information. We want to say thanks to our friends at Hometown. Hometown continues to be a leader in education-based athletics with their suite of solutions that includes things like, digital ticketing, of course, but how about fee-free fundraising, athletic website construction? Their list just goes on and on. Whether you're a principal, an athletic director, even a coach, Hometown's going to show you how to save time. They're going to show you how to raise more money, and they're going to show you how to bring your community together. You'll find it all at hometown.com. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and Beacon Creative. Now, Wall of Fame has been helping schools bring their legacy to life for over a decade, but Beacon Creative takes it to a whole new level. Beacon's a content creation platform. They're going to take your stories, your history for your coaches, your kids, and come up with compelling narratives that you can then post on social media, maybe even on a Vital Signs Wall of Fame board. I want you to reach out to John Townsend, and you can do that by emailing John, John, at beaconwalloffame.com. Beacon Creative and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. It's a winning team that you should be on. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com, join the 100 million fans and users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. And let's say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. You've heard me say many times that Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an AD was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. And when you do, tell them you heard about it on the Educational AD Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. This is going to be an interesting Tech Tuesday. You've got two very old, very retired athletic directors, and we're talking about tech. But our guest today is somebody that I hope I can call a very good friend. Mark, his friends call him Hutch Hunter. Hutch is a long-time coach and AD in the state of Utah. He's retired now. He's a certified master athletic administrator. He's the course chair for the 799 course. That's the course you need to take to be a teacher of the LTI courses.
790, Jake.
790, yes. I said 799. Sorry about that. Yeah, see, he's teaching me already. I'll just go ahead and cut to the chase. He's a member of the NIAAA Hall of Fame. He's also the creator and the host of the UIAAA Connection, the Utah podcast. And I wanted to have him come back on the podcast he's been on before and just maybe kind of share a little bit about his own journey, because it is impressive, but also talk a little bit about how they started their podcast, because I get asked that question a lot. I speak at a lot of conferences and talk to ADs, and they say, hey, how hard is it to start a podcast? We're also going to talk about this. He is a best-selling author 3 times over. We're going to talk about his books. Hutch Hunter, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me on, and welcome to all your listeners out there. I guess I'll begin with, and you'll remember this well, Jake, really the impetus or how I got the idea for the podcast was, it's been almost 6 years ago. Some fellow called me. I don't remember his name. It's from some national radio station. Got my name from somewhere. Said, hey, we'd like you to do a podcast for us, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm talking to him. Everything seems pretty good till he said, well, yeah, you only have to front the cost, $8,000 for 13 episodes. And if you remember right, that's when I either called or texted you and I said, look, Jake, I'm thinking about this podcast. I got the idea from this fellow, but I'm not putting out, $8K for this. And you're the one that hooked me up with Anchor and said, look, I do my podcast on Anchor. And long story short, that's how I got started. The very first guest on the UIAAA podcast, the 1st of January in 2001, I believe, was the late Dr. Lee Green. And I always try to get an average of 4 shows a month. I make sure that I get a female on every 4 times. I make sure I try to get a national voice. And I try to get Utah people on twice a month. That's but I'm right now. I've had so many Utah people. I'm at the conference last week. I had to beat the band to get some new ones because I think I'm on last week's episode with the student scholars was.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I want to say 275, 276. Coming up on 280. It'll be 3 years or 6 years at the end of this month. But for all those out there thinking about doing a podcast, any of the listeners of my podcast or yours, basically, I think the initial output was making sure that you have more than 40 minutes on Zoom. That's how I do my platform. I don't know how you do yours, either Zoom or probably Google Meet. Either one of those would work. You record it. I think I went out and bought a $45 microphone that I plugged into the machine. And like you, and I'll admit to copying you, it's a general set of questions. I like to get some background from the people, where they grew up, what they've done, how they get into coaching, how they get into being AD, talk about some challenges in their life. And then I'd like to have some specific questions. For example, if you've been on the board, I talk to people who've been on the board to share that experience. I talk to a lot of leadership training coordinators, talk about the conference that you and I have attended in September. Just general stuff, what it's like to be an AD now, what's changed, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's the quick version in a nutshell. But I'm here to tell you, if I can do it, then anybody out there listening to this can do it. You don't have to do it once a week. I know you do more than once a week. You have your regular podcast, plus obviously today's Tech Tuesday, and I know you have a Wednesday segment. And then, of course, you've taken yours to another level because you've got the athletic director's toolbox, of which I was honored to be in the first edition of that. And so you've basically taken the information you get from these podcasts, put that in the toolbox, and put that out there for people. So I can't thank you enough for that. And for the new ADs out there, this would be a good program for you to get because it's got nuggets from all of Jake's guests, through the years, which is probably a few months longer than I have. So that takes care of that part.
Well, again, you talk about copying formats. I was asked to be on Don Baker and Josh Matthews' podcast, Hanging with the AD. During COVID, we had done some things here in Florida, and I remember I get the phone call and I'm going, "What's a podcast?" Because I was not aware of that at all. And it was just so much fun, and they did such a great job. And I've told them this many times. I literally copied their format, trying to do something for the state of Florida, and we just kind of expanded in a way I never could have imagined. So very flattered that you liked my format, which was not mine; it was Don and Josh's.
Right.
As your podcast has developed, and I appreciate you sharing how yours breaks down, a national guest, a couple of Utah guests. And again, we do the same thing. We try to get representation across the board, across the spectrum. We have new ADs, we have aspiring ADs. But as you've seen your podcast develop and grow in these past 5 going on 6 years, I mean, what's some of the feedback you've got from your state? From the guests that have been on. What kind of impact has the UIAAA Connection had, not just in your state but on a national level?
I think I'm not sure. I don't have quite the audience you have. I have had some international guests on. It's funny that you mentioned that. When I've talked to some Utah people in the past 2 years, they mentioned, well, I don't know if I want to be on. I've heard some of the podcasts, and I don't know if I have something to add. And I say, hey,
Right.
it's just, let's just have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a problem. It's easy. And the hesitant ones have come on, and then after it's done, they say, well, I'm glad I did that. But the funny thing is, so I've obviously scheduled it so it pops up at 2 a.m. Friday morning every Friday. And by the time I get Wake Up Friday, and then I advertise it over social media, on the NIAAA, Sports U, et cetera, just like you do, just like all of them do. And so I put that, and there's usually 2 or 3 listeners that have already heard the podcast by the time I go get the link, 7 or 8 o'clock my time. Somebody from back, it doesn't say who they are, but it's like clockwork. I can get 2 or 3 listeners, and they listen every week, and then it gives you the numbers. And like I say, I think it has a good audience. I just don't know that I have possibly the international audience that you have, but you've had, as you mentioned before, I mean, you've probably had 3 times the guests on. And so but I think I think that the people in Utah like it, and that's really why I did it. I try not to get 3 national guests on in a row, just because even though they have important things to say, I think it's important that we get that Utah look, because it is the UIAAA connection. But by the same token, I think it's important that you have more than just Utah people on there, so they can hear the stories from people around the nation. And I've had 2 or 3 people comment to me just at our conference last week, thanking me for the podcast, and said, I really like so-and-so's, and I didn't know this about them, and I got a good idea from the guest you had on from California, or the guest you had on from Maryland. And I believe it's made a big impact. It's fun for me. And like you and people probably understand this, it's usually I'll put 8 or 9 in the can, like on a 2 to 3 day span. Gussy them up, put the intro on, put the ending on, put the music to it, blah, blah, blah. Stick them on YouTube, stick them on Anchor, Spotify, all the Apple, whatever they go on. And then it's just me every Friday, just setting up, this is the current podcast, blah, 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 blah. But I love to hear the comments from the people. And so I'm hoping that answers your question. And I will say to people again, if you want to start one in your state or if you want to start one in your school district and maybe go with just coaches and athletes from different sports in your district, just go ahead and do it. Get the format you want, go do it, and start sharing it because it's a great thing. People joke with me, as I'm sure they do with you. Oh, you're famous. You're a podcaster. I remember before I did the podcast, back when my first book, Plateau, came out, and one of the football players' parents did a podcast, and I said, you gotta get me on your podcast, not knowing what it was. I said, I gotta, if I'm on your podcast, I'll sell thousands of books, which I was on it. I didn't sell thousands, but I sold some. But that's beside the point. But you're right. It's funny to look back on how this all started. But just to reinforce what you've said, I think it's important people understand that they could even do it just for their school if they don't want to do a district. You could get different students, get your athletes, get your English kids, your math kids, your club kids, get the secretaries on in your office, get your vice principals on, and just build. If you just want to go with your school, then just go that way. But if you're thinking about doing it, just go ahead and do it. So I'll leave it at that.
No, it's all great advice, and it's absolutely true. Particularly just doing it from a school perspective. Do it once a week, do it once a month. You know this, and I think our listeners that are going to listen to a show like ours know this. That there are so many great stories from your student athletes, from your coaches, even maybe from parents or sponsors that you can record and get out there. And whether you want to say it's taking control of the narrative, parents or community members, they're going to talk about your high school program, whether you want them to or not. And they're going to find things to talk about. Give them talking points by putting that podcast out there, and find a young coach that is enthusiastic, has a little bit of let's say, a on-air presence. Let them be the host, and then they can interview you for the AD segment. Have them get the kids on. Get that get that report from the JV tennis team. Don't ignore the other sports. Get it out there. It's just a great way to promote your program. And what you mentioned about, guests are sometimes, shy about coming on. Everybody has a story of where they grew up and, where they went to high school and college. And those are interesting. And everybody has their own set of tools. And you've participated in the toolbox before. We have tools that have been mentioned, hundreds of times, but sometimes in a very unique way. And, that's what I love to hear is, like communication and organization, building relationships, being a lifelong learner. Those are probably 4 of our top 5 tools that we get mentioned over the years. But somebody will mention, communication in a brand new way that we've never heard before. And that's what I like to hear and be able to share. I enjoy listening to the stories, and I'm sure you do too, but just being able to share those tools and have somebody say in an email or a text, boy, I wish I had this when I was first starting out. That's what makes me feel good.
No, and you're exactly right. If I might add to that, I've had people on my podcast that are very, very close friends of mine that I've known for years. And some of the stories that have come from that, I had no idea. It's fun to hear where people have visited foreign countries or lived in a foreign country for a couple of years, or not to be gross, but got one of their fingers chopped off when they were a kid and they've just overcome it. Still wrestled at the collegiate level, and I had known this person for years and years and never even noticed. because it had surgery. He just got the three fingers, but I'm just not to be overly graphic, but I think you're so right. Everyone has their story, and the best podcasts to me are the ones where I say the least amount. I just
Hmm.
put the idea out there, ask the question, and I just get them to talk about their experience and share it with our audience. And then normally, as you know, that they'll say something that leads to a follow-up here or a follow-up there that wasn't in your plan, but depending on
Hmm.
your time frame, you go after that, and it just adds to the podcast. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh no, yeah, you're so right. You talk about stories. Let's jump into, and you just mentioned this. You are a very successful author, not so much or not in an area that people might think. The books that you've written are tremendous. Tales, if you will, that kind of weave historical events into a fictional narrative. Great characters. Of course, you know who my favorite character is in one of your books. But
Right.
share a little bit about how that all got started. And I'll just say, with your first book, Plateau, how did that eventually, go to print? And share a little bit about the story.
Well, here's the interesting thing about Plateau, and I need to preface this so everyone who thinks that I spent years and years in an English class, I may have been the most horrible English student in my high school in my class. I did not pay attention. I had A's, B pluses, and everything else. English was like C, C minus. I think it may be, I got a D plus when I was a junior. So English was not my favorite subject, but the story of Plateau goes back to 1989, 1990, that long ago. I had recently read a couple of Robert Ludlum novels. I've been turned on to Clive Cussler, started reading Tom Clancy, and I thought to myself, now, these guys are good. But then I read some other authors who I won't mention their name, whose books were not nearly as good. At least for me, they weren't nearly as good. I'm not trying to put any other author down. But then the thought came to me, well, I can't write like Clancy or Cussler or Ludlum, but I'm as good as this person. And I looked at the ideas, and so I thought, what can I write a story about? So I thought, well, I'm just going to write about what I know. And so Plateau takes place in Salt Lake, takes place in Moab around Arches, where I camped a lot with my family and my kids when they were younger, ends at the Grand Canyon, as you well know. The crazy thing about Plateau is I sat down in 1989 and just started to write an hour here, an hour there, maybe 3, 4 hours a week. After my schoolwork was done, before I went home, I just wrote and I just kept writing. And I got to the end of it and it was done. And of course, there's a lot of review. And of course, it was my first book. So I think you can tell if you read the first one that the second one is written a little better. And so is the third one after that. But the idea was in my head. And I thought, well, I could just make an every normal average person and get him thrown into this situation. And so I wrote about the things that I knew. And then time came to write Hoodoo, which I didn't think I'd even write a second book. And from what I understand, there's a famous person in Hoodoo who shall remain nameless, Jake, but you know who I'm talking about. And anyway, so then Hoodoo, then I thought, oh my goodness. So then I had to, well, I'm going to write this. I stuck with what I did in Plateau. So there was, it was the same, it was the person, Pinkerton Todd from the first book. Uh, who went down to see his buddy Calvin Hartford at the Grand Canyon after he got back from the war. That's how it starts out. And he had a brother who was a famous private detective, and all of a sudden the Depression hits in 1930, 1929. He's a world famous in the United States detective, and he's unemployed, and he's making furniture to try to make ends meet because it's the Depression. Nobody's got any money. Nobody's got any jobs. And so then I stuck with the first thing. I took an event that happened back in 1912, developed that story. But here came the hard. Then I had to outline. I had to, this is where I want this. This is okay. I should have this thought. These are the scenes. I wrote them down on 3x5 cards. I switched them around. Well, this goes in part one, part two, part three. Writing Hoodoo was a lot harder than writing Plateau because I had the ideas up there. But I think because of the process I went through, I think it's better written. And then, of course, then Castlegate, which came out just last November, is really a sequel, if you will, to Plateau. Plateau's 1991. All of a sudden, we jump up 20 years to 2011. Same main character, but now he's married. Obviously, he met his wife in the first book. They've got kids. He's no longer working at the University of Utah. He's the high school athletic director. Oh, big surprise. I wrote about, what I knew. There's scenes in there. Jim Watkins, for example, is in Castlegate, and some actual people from the NIAAA, a lot of people actually from the NIAAA here in Castlegate. I think I talk about the 2012 conference, which was in San Antonio, as part of the plot that goes with Castlegate. And so then I finished that out and didn't think I was going to write a fourth one, but the fourth one, which right now does not have a title, I'm toying with Angel's Landing. That could be the title. I mean, you remember just months ago, well, it's probably been over half a year now, when that big college basketball betting scandal and point shaving, and they named schools and they named kids. And I thought, I'm going to maybe go with something like that. Put it in 2023. I'm going to make it a football point shaving scandal. And so then I had to do tons of research about the VIG and the bet and the spread and the over and the under and the prop bet and this and that. And so that's what I'm in the middle of now. I'm probably, I want to say 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the way through, but I'm wrapping that up. But now that I'm retired, it's a lot easier to write. When I was writing Plateau, I was grabbing an hour here and there. It took me 2 full years to write it. When I wrote Castlegate, I want to say it was 14, 15 months. Hoodoo was probably 18 months. And this new book is probably going to be less than a year by the time I get it edited and stuff. But I appreciate you asking. For those people out there, my books are different than Dr. Jake's books. I mean, Dr. Jake books are how can you get better? Obviously, you share the ideas, like I said before, with all the people who've been on your podcast. And so that's great. My books are, you want to get away from the weekend, you want a fantasy read. I've made it a point, and maybe people say I'm too old school, but I mean, I the most sex you're going to find in my book is like a lengthy kiss. And I think maybe there might be a couple of hells and a couple of dams in Plateau, but there's not even, there's no cuss. I'm a little bit, I just thought, I just want these to be about a normal person who gets caught up in this, gets caught up in that, has a boy playing college football now, and he gets caught up in this college football betting scandal that's about to break. And how would that affect the normal person? And maybe I'm trying to think what the word is, too goody two shoes, but I try to be as blunt, as real as I can. But I know with today's entertainment, there is just so much cussing going on and there's so much violence. And I think, for me at least, I'm just not comfortable telling my story that way, so I don't. And if the people don't like it, it's no big deal. Then, don't buy the book. That's easy.
Well, I guess the authors that you mentioned that you kind of were reading and that you liked, I like those authors too, and I certainly and I think I've done it on Amazon. I've given your books 2 vigorous thumbs up. Again, the storytelling, the characters, it's very engaging, very entertaining, and I mean, I guess now that you mention it, I guess, okay, there wasn't, hardcore sex or swearing, but hey, who cares? You're telling your story, you're telling the
Mhm.
story of your characters, and it's a good read. And so for listeners, if you want to talk about tools, one of our most frequently mentioned tools in all of the editions is that work-life balance, and finding some time to get away and pick up a good book that has absolutely nothing to do with athletics. Although, as Mark has mentioned, the main character, oh, big surprise, is a high school athletic director. Okay, so
Mhm.
it's definitely worth your while. So the original book, the first one, is Plateau, and these books are available wherever you get books. The second one is Hoodoo. I think that's Hoodoo.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
Right. Who
And then
named after
the
the Hoodoos at Bryce Canyon? Yep.
yeah, and then
Exactly.
the most recent one that's available is Castle Gate, and there's a fourth one coming out. So add those to your personal library or your professional library, and you can get them. Like I get them on Amazon. As soon as Mark says it's open, it's available,
Mm.
I make my order. So Mark, let's
The
talk.
funny thing is, well, before you go into this next question, the funny thing is, the thought just came to me. So, um, when Hoodoo came out, so this was a year, 18 months before, I walk into the faculty meeting at the national conference. You and I are both there because we're on the NIAAA national faculty. And the crazy, so there was two people bought Plateau and Hoodoo and brought them to me before the meeting started because they wanted them autographed. And I said, okay, I'll do it, or I'll do it after the meeting because I didn't want to take any part of the meeting, to do that. But that's to have that happen to me was just so because I'm just an average person, just like you. I don't think of myself as this big famous guy, but at least these people that brought me their books that were nice enough to buy them had me sign them and autograph them, and so I was glad to do that. But didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry, Jake.
No, no, not at all. And I'll go and comment on that. It is cool when somebody comes up and they've got your book, and they say, "Hey, would you sign this? Would you autograph it?" And you're a real author. You've created something with characters and a story. I think I'm more of an editor or a collector of other people's wisdom. Yeah, I put it in the book, but hats off to you for taking something that you love, and creating something that you can now share with others. So very cool. I was just going to say, if somebody wants to find out more about the podcast, the UIAAA Connection, or about maybe they're a budding author and they want to pick your brain on that, or they just want to add you
Sure.
to their network, what's the best way that our listeners can connect with Hutch Hunter?
Connect with me by email. It's Hutch80 and then the letters AD as in Alpha Delta at yahoo.com. You can get my cell, so I don't mind giving it out to people. 801-560-0854. Call me anytime, unless, of course, it's the middle of the night. And be glad to talk to you about anything that we've discussed today. And while I'm on the plug, let me give a plug for the new 790. I want to say 790 is being rewritten again. I think it's my sixth rewrite because I've been on the staff for like 25, 26 years. But the new edition of the 790 will be out in this year's conference in Phoenix. So those athletic directors out there that have not taken the 790, have not gotten into teaching in your state and then possibly moving up to teaching at the national level, you're going to want to take 790, and this will be the latest iteration, and you'll like it because we haven't made major changes. We've made minor changes. Everyone's familiar with Doug Kilgore, the bow tie AD. And if you think back when you took 790, you heard him talk about the mind, body, and soul. And we've kind of revamped that same ideas, but we've got much shorter segments with 10 to 12 people from around the NIAAA, uh, male, female, black, white, Asian, et cetera, trying to get a good group of people together to share the same ideas, but in shorter segments, hoping the discussion is better. So Just a plug for the new 790 that's going to come out probably, what, 8, 9 months from now. Well, probably 7, 8 months from now.
Oh, no, absolutely. And again, listeners, all the LTI courses are great courses. They are all great courses. But 790, that's the one that allows you, as Mark just said, to now teach those same courses that you've taken at your state conference and share all of that information with people in your own state, and hopefully, work your way up to being asked to join a national faculty. So thanks for sharing that. Mark, it's always great to see you. Always enjoy seeing you at the national conference. Thanks for letting me, ride your coattails and help out with the cornhole tournament this year. Okay, I'm available if needed. But all the best moving forward for the rest of the spring and summer, and looking forward to seeing you in Phoenix.
Thanks, Dr. Jake. Appreciate it.
For our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of every interview to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do Tech Tuesday just about every week, and just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So please come back and join us again on the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. And if you're not listening to the UIAAA Connection, go to Spotify and add that to your list of favorites. Thanks again. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast. And before we go, of course, we want to give a shout out to all of our great sponsors. Let's say thanks to Booster Hub, the #1 booster club software program. Go to boosterhub.com to get started. Home Campus, it's a platform you're going to use every day. Scheduling, rosters, results, eligibility, and facilities. Go to homecampus.com. Athletic surveys. If you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your coaches, your parents, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Beacon Creative and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Check out Beacon Creative. Email John Townsend and find out all the things that Beacon Creative can do for you and your school. Gipper, it's professional graphic design for your athletic department, made easy. Go to gipper.com. Hometown, whether it's digital ticketing, online fundraising, athletic websites, or more, Hometown is a place you want to go. Check out hometown.com. Huddle. I used Huddle as a football coach for years, and as an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com to get started. And finally, Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. You know someone that's looking for a master's degree in athletic administration? Tell them to go to Ohio University, probably the most respected institution of that kind, Ohio University. Thanks again. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.